The administration is considering giving local sheriffs more power to help deal with the crackdown. Blue state governors are promising resistance, despite Trump's threat to withhold federal funding from those who won't comply. The mayor of San Diego suburb of El Cajon, California, Bill Wells, joins me now. Mayor, thank you so much for coming on with us today. You know, some of your Democratic mayoral colleagues across the country say they're willing to go to jail to protect illegal immigrants. I mean, presumably that even includes the criminal migrants. The mayor of Denver says he'll get local police and residents to resist the deportation efforts. What will you do in your city?
Well, I know that we're in California, but my city still wants to be compliant with the federal law. You know, I don't want us to be a sanctuary city. I think that we need to do our part to counteract this invasion that we've had over the past few years. And we're more than willing to help. The problem is the state of California has written laws that make it very difficult for us to help and puts our police at risk if they try to.
Yeah, I noted that you wrote on your Facebook page that the state of California is threatening police officers with felonies and the loss of their pensions for complying with.
You deserve to feel safe with the confidence that you're protected online.
Isn't that?
Introducing McAfee Plus, all-in-one protection that
Federal deportation laws. Tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, so it's a misdemeanor if a police officer calls ICE or calls Border Patrol, cooperates with them in any way to help get somebody deported or let them know that perhaps we have a Venezuelan gang member here. And if they do that, they're committing a crime under the state of California statutes, a misdemeanor. It also puts them in the position where they can be sued civilly. So if you get convicted of a misdemeanor as a police officer, you can lose your position and you can lose your pension. And we really think it's completely unfair to put the police officers in between the local government, the state government, and the federal government. This should be worked out really at the federal state level. And as far as I'm concerned, the federal law supersedes state law.
Yeah, it really is putting them between a rock and a hard place. It certainly seems that way. I want to take a listen to Senator Marsha Blackburn. She was on our air earlier this morning talking about this new administration carrying out deportation. Let's take a listen.
The American people have spoken. They want the border secure. They want the fentanyl, the drug trafficking, the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the gangs and the crime to end. They want an end to this. It is why the American people overwhelmingly support the way President Donald Trump is carrying out this transition.
So, you know, critics talk about the cost of deportation, and also wonder about the people who are here living quiet lives, maybe working in the service industry, maybe paying taxes, people who are not out committing criminal acts. There are lots of people in Southern California like that. Should those people be worried right now? Have you received any instructions about how to deal with those people?
No, and I think that's kind of a red herring. I think in the beginning part, there's about 1.5 million people in the United States that are, verifiably criminals. And the administration is going to be going after those people first. I think they're also going to be working on trying to stop the sex traffic and find the 300,000 kids that are missing. That's going to take a while. And I think by the time we get to the point where you've got your person who came across the border and was just looking for a quiet life in America, who knows where we're going to be as a country at that point. I wouldn't speculate, but I would speculate that they don't have anything to worry about for a significant period of time.
Mm-hmm. And you've certainly been very outspoken on this issue and how it affects your community. Can you tell us how illegal immigration has affected your community there in El Cajon?
Well, California is always on the edge anyway. We have the highest homeless population. We have the biggest problems really of any state. It's all self-inflicted wounds because of this ultra-liberal policy. We've already at the point where our hospitals are full to capacity, our social services are full to capacity, and now you add on several 100,000 people that have come across the border and have been just infused into our communities. That makes it really difficult for the schools. It makes it difficult for the hospitals. I mean, try to go to the hospital for a hurt thumb or a sinus infection, you'll wait 10 hours. And it really doesn't have to be this way, but California is determined to put their citizens last and put people that come from other countries first. And we think that that's a big problem. And by the way, not everybody in California is that liberal. It's really only the coastal areas. Most of California still believes the way the rest of the country believes.
Yeah. Well, it was a top issue in this last election, that's for sure. A lot of people voted on that issue. So we will see how this all plays out, and we'll be keeping an eye on your state as well. Mayor Bill Wells of El Cajon, California, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me today.
That funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5 in the Evil at B Network, Rumble, YouTube, X. I think I got them all in there. What a lineup. You've seen Mayor Bill Wells from El Cajon, California. Not too far. I mean, not probably. El Cajon, maybe 5-10 miles from the border, just a little bit east of San Diego. Used to be famous for the El Cajon Speedway and the airport right by it that airplanes keep crashing into. But he said California is putting illegals, people here illegally, their interests, and the state of California is ahead of U.S. citizens. This has gone on way too far. That's why you see the deal. And there's a rumor, there's talks going on, of all people, Eric Adams, the new mayor of New York, who complained about this when, 750,000 plus illegals got dumped in his community, his city, and he said, hey, I need some bucks. And Joe Biden said, go pound sand. And he said, hey, I ain't putting up with this crap, and here come the indictments. He gets the Trump treatment. So, just like RFK Jr. and a lot of other people, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, they had nowhere else to go. Elon Musk basically got thrown out of California by the stupid rules and regulations and everything else that was going on. Taking all his companies out, like many of them are. Eric Adams is probably going to cut a deal with Trump to assist none other than Tom Homan, the new border czar, coming in to say, hey, get him the hell out of my city. You're running us into the ground. Gotham City, biggest city in probably the world. They're not got to be in the top 3. Biggest one in the United States by far. 750,000 illegals being dumped in. Of course, El Cajon, California, Arizona, Texas, Florida have been bombarded with this crisis for eons. And of course, the Eric Adams, the J.B. Pritzkers, and all that, they were perfectly fine of calling themselves sanctuary cities and states, and we're not going to tell anybody where the illegals are, and we're going to protect them, and well, they're systematically changing their tunes when, over the assault of the Harris-Biden administration, they got hit with this like a 36-pound sledgehammer over the head. And they ain't liking that much, to say the least. So this is where we're at. We're at that point of mayors in big little towns all over America, from the biggest to the smallest. You get to the Aurora, Colorados, and the Springfield, Ohios, and everywhere in between are saying woo woo, like Springfield, Ohio. town of 40, 50,000, got 30,000 illegals from Haiti. Haiti dumped in their backyard. I should add that Trump still went viral. They're killing the dogs and the cats. But that's why Tom Homan said, hey, we're going to clean these guys out. Of course, they're going to start with the criminals, which they should. Let's weed out the most dangerous ones first. And we played the clip from 2008 when Hillary Clinton was said, hey, send them back, get them to the back of the line, deport them now if they're here illegally, have them pay the fine and the taxes, then we'll talk about letting them back in. That was Hillary Clinton circa 2008 running her first failed attempt at running for the presidency, and we're thanking our lucky stars every day that happened. It's almost uncanny how when it affects you, boy, does your tune change a whole 180 degrees. When it's not affecting you, you don't. One of the bright spots that we've had is we did recover 2 assembly seats and 1 state Senate seat, all 3 in Southern California, 1 assembly seat, Leticia Castillo in 58 in Corona Riverside. Jeff Gonzalez, the one that runs from Ontario County up to the eastern end of Riverside County and touches into San Bernardino County, a flip seat. Another flip seat. All the ones we won were flip seats, and this one of an incumbent, Steve Choi, in the state Senate, the seat that runs from Chino Hills down to Brea into Irvine, where the odious Josh Newman, who we recalled, he got back in. Now we voted him out again. As you see on Cal Matters from Alexis Kossoff, top Democrats say they won't just Trump-proof California, they'll make it affordable again. So I guess Rivas, Newsom, Rob Bonta are going to make California affordable again. Hats. While they're telling Trump to stick it in his rear end. The guy who will help them really make it affordable again, but they're feeling the heat over this last 65 cent a gallon gas tax that CARB came up with. They're feeling the flat heat of this stuff. They're feeling the noise of the election. There's Rivas and Mike McGuire, the Senate leader, Rivas in the House or in the Assembly. And they had that Monday meeting. Oh, yeah, we're going to Trump-proof California and this. Well, because they know Elon Musk pissed at them. Trump's pissed at California. Leaders of the state legislature have a message for voters. We know you're frustrated how expensive California is, and we're going to fix it. The guys that fouled it all up, 80+% state legislature, every state office held by a Democrat. We should pick up one more assembly seat because of the Vince Fong deal where he's in Congress. So it should be 30-10. It was 32-8. Excuse me, that was in the House. We should be 60-20. It was 63-17. We were 32-8. In the state Senate will be 31-9. So we gained 1. We should, and when it's all said and done, once the Bakersfield seat assembly seat gets one, the one that Fong used to have, We should have picked, or we picked up 2, but we should have 3+ seats from where we are right now. Should be at 60-20 when it's all flushed out. They have royally made California. Businesses can't survive. People cannot survive. Their quality of life's going to trash over the crime and the inflation and the rules and regulations and just the general homeless capital of the world. Everything's turned negative, practically. After the election, this sparked recriminations and soul searching among Democrats across the country. State President Pro Tem Mike McGuire and Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas are returning to Sacramento, recommitted to addressing the affordability issues that appear to have pushed more voters towards the Republican Party in November. Yeah, Imperial County voted for Trump, when in 2020 it was plus 24 for Biden. Trump picked up percentage. About 5, Harris down 5, Trump up 5 from 2020. Garvey actually was the only state or U.S. senator that actually outpolled Trump. He's about 3 points better than Trump is. McGuire and Rivas told Cal Matters in separate interviews that the priority will be advancing policies that lower the cost of living for working Californians, including building more housing, making energy cheaper, and improving public infrastructure. Well, let's take that. Lower the cost of living for working Californians. Let's not sue Donald Trump. Let's embrace Donald Trump. Let's put free market principles in. Let's do some tax cuts. Let's chop regulations. Maybe we'll rebuild our state banking system. It worked awful well for North and South Dakota. North Dakota didn't even suffer, in fact, thrived in the Obama-Bush crash of the late 08, 09 teens, early teens of that. Build more housing, same thing. Let's cut the costs. Let's deport the illegals who have been taking the jobs, the construction job, the jobs. Americans won't frame a house, or pour concrete, or do electrical wiring, or pave a road. Give me a frickin' break. Make energy cheaper, then let's start building frickin' nuclear power plants from San Diego to Eureka. Let's drill, baby, drill. Oil and gas. We can be 100% oil efficient if we would drill in California. We only pump 25% of the oil that we use every day. And same with natural gas. We're importing natural gas. We're stupid. Because the solar, we have to sell power so we don't burn up the grid when it's 102 degrees. We have to pay Arizona and Nevada and Utah and Oregon to take the power so it doesn't burn up the frickin' wires and the transformers and switching stations. And then it isn't working 3/4 of the frickin' day. Improve public infrastructure. Let's go back to Pat Brown, starting in 58 to 66, Ronald Reagan from 66 to 74. We built water projects, reservoirs, channels, everything else. We built the finest frickin' highway system in the world just on the gas tax. No bonds, no general funds, no nothing. Just what they made off 1 cent a sales gas tax at the time. Because we didn't have stupid rules and regulations. It didn't cost $20 billion a mile to build a freeway. It cost like 3.5 cents. And then when they decided to build one, they said, okay, we're eminent domain the property on the 60 freeway from the Badlands through Moreno Valley, and we'll settle up the claims later, but it's full speed ahead. in a year, they had the freaking freeway done from start to finish. With the 101, or the 11, what was it down in LA? 30 years they went, they hassled and hassled and hassled, bought the homes, everything. They sat there and rotted, and then we just gave up. They are lying through their freaking teeth. Lock, stock, and freaking barrel. I mean, it's flat incredible that they will sit in there and just up and lie. Oh, well, we're going to do all this stuff. Well, right out of the gate, we're going to sue Trump. Oh, yeah. And then they want to go to the Olympics and say, well, we need money for the Olympics because they're coming in. Oh, I'm sure Trump's opening up the wallet right now and say, well, how much do you really need? Oh, the $20 billion isn't enough. Maybe you need 50 or 60 just to make sure you cover all the bases. Ha, ha, ha. And our only way forward is to acknowledge that we have to do better. You've had every state office. You've had 80% in the state legislature of representatives. You had every chance to fix this, and you've blown it at every frickin' opportunity. Now we owe the feds, what, $30 billion in the welfare, the unemployment fraud thing? Then we're going to protect the illegals. In fact, we're going to protect them more than citizens. We played the Bill Wells, Mayor of El Cajon clip there at the beginning. Just don't expect any drastic changes under the dome. Despite losing a handful of seats, both leaders are adamant that returning Democrat supermajority signals that voters are still on board with their values, if it's not always the outcomes of their governments. Then why did you say, well, we got to do better? You think you're doing perfect. Just because we ain't fixed the election system yet and a few other things doesn't mean everybody's on board with this. Yeah, you've conned a lot of people. You've systematically redistricted it to where you locked in these seats where it's very difficult, even though we beat them here in Corona Norco, down in Imperial Valley, and there in Orange County, very western end of San Bernardino County. We made some inroads, yes. Everywhere we gained. And we just begun to fight. They're picking the fights with the wrong person. They should be on the phone with their state with their Congress people, with Padilla and God help us, pencil neck shift, saying, hey, get on the horn with the Trump crew and let's see if we can work this stuff out. No, we're Gulag, we're suing. Holy bejesus. This was yesterday. The House subcommittee releases a new COVID-19 report concluding government officials led the public. The big silencio on this whole thing that came out Tuesday, everything us tinfoil hat, nutcase, evil white hillbillies, racist. Yeah, it was a China virus. They released it. It was gain of function. Fauci and the crew were doing it. The freaking CIA told us you were. Said, hey, there's something, you better start checking out what's going on down this Wuhan lab thing. It ain't looking cool. We got from everything on this. Here's Doc Malone. We've run a lot of times.
How thorough of a review was this of the pandemic, in your opinion?
So there's areas that it was quite thorough and aggressive, in part because it had the ability to subpoena and to hold classified hearings. There is a lot of concern and complaints that the committee did not delve into, in particular, the adverse events associated with the vaccine. This is revealed in part through the odd juxtaposition of a very strong endorsement of Operation Warp Speed, immediately followed by a statement in the committee's summary that the vaccines were their effectiveness was overstated, their safety was understated, or it was not acknowledged, the adverse event profiles, and
And he's right. They did acknowledge. But it was not publicized. The vaccine was way overhyped. Masks didn't work. Social distancing was a con. Everything that they were saying, practically. The only people that really had, in my view, and I think most of the reports said, were very elderly people that were susceptible for dying, or people that had, chronic conditions, cancer or something, where their immune system's weakened. It might be worth the coin flip. For everybody else, no way. Here's Fredo on News Nation. He had Redfield and Matt Taibbi on. Fredo was playing the company line because his brother was the evil twin with Gulag Gavin doing this stuff. Here we go. We thought, here we go.
Happened in a lab, or that he made COVID and that he wanted a gain of function research that would make it into a bioweapon, the way the Republicans seem to make it go. Matt, you believe that there is some...
Not seem to make it go, Fredo. That's what they said. Matt Taibbi, who was on the other side but joined us tinfoil hatters.
Meat on the bones of that idea. Why?
Well, for a couple of reasons. I mean, one of the stories that I worked on was how the famed article in Nature Medicine magazine called The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2 got to be published. The scientists who put together that article, we were able to get access to their private Slack chats, where you can see them early in the process talking quite candidly about how they think accidental release from a lab is a likely possibility.
That's why Taibbi, Barry Weiss, Michael Schellenberger, and a lot of people, Tulsi Gabbard, came to our side on this whole thing. They knew Fauci was a fraud. Here's Redfield, who was on the inside of this whole condition going on. Let's see if we got it. Here we go.
Well, the exact grant that Tony's alluding to is not the virus that turned into be COVID-19. But it's not to say that the money that the NIH and USAID, State Department, DOD gave to that lab to do gain-of-function research didn't lead to the pathogen that ultimately became COVID-19. I'm of the view that the origin of COVID-19 was the gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology lab, which was funded highly by the United States.
Why wasn't Redfield saying this when he was in the Trump administration CDC director? Holy flippin' cow. But 98.7% of everything that was coming out of the government, not only ours, of practice, China and all this other stuff, was utter But yes, now we expect that from China. Why isn't this being... There should be air raid sirens going off about this kind of stuff. You hardly heard a peep of it. You can hardly find on any of the Mockingbird media. It's like this story doesn't exist. Wait a minute, Redfield. Why didn't you say this at the time when you were in the White House instead of calling us a bunch of conspiracy theorists and we didn't know what we were talking about? Oh, we're the science. Vaya caramba, sometimes it's tough to take some of this stuff. I mean, not an apology. Of course, Fredo's up there. Oh, well, I believe that Tony Fauci was a god, and whatever he said, you cannot question.
40 seconds, 40 seconds.
And it's like something else, as Jesse said, we'll be joining the Mighty Met KMET here in a few seconds of that, but it's absolutely crazy. But I hope more people publicize that report. It's like I say, not that it's too late, but us tinfoil hatters have been vindicated. Practically everything we said about COVID, even though we didn't know what we were doing, was correct.
5 seconds. Here we go.
Today, IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, management,
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video audience in the Evil FB network and Rumble. Check us out. Subscribe. Type in IE Newswire on Rumble. Man, we had Bill Wells, Oklahoma mayor, come on and say they're protecting illegals more than citizens. We had the the House report on COVID-19. Yeah, it's gain of function research. Yeah, they didn't just overhype the vaccine. Practically everything they said about it was BS, along with the social distancing and the masks and everything else. You're hearing big radio silence all across the board on this. That is fascinating to me of how that's working, because man, that should be again today, and I'm not holding my breath, as the old expression goes. How long is it going to be until they say, we're sorry, we apologize? At least maybe we can start rebuilding, mending the fences. They all say they want to get along, like California. We had that, where now they're saying, well, we're going to fix all this stuff after we've almost broken it beyond repair. It's fascinating to me how this comes about. And I don't know. Hopefully, we'll get to a point where we can clean it out. We made some gains nationally. Of course, Trump's in. We even made a few micro steps, baby steps in California of fixing this stuff. But, we've got to go onward and upward. But as we usually do on a Wednesday, we have the famed editorial writer columnist for the Press Enterprise, San Bernardino Sun, Inland Daily Bulletin, Redlands Daily Facts, more important to me, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, Susan Shelley, Wyoming IE Newswire, Leroy.
Hi, Roy. Great to be with you.
I was struck by the Cal Matters wrote down Walters, and another guy had it in there about, and now Rivas and McGuire, the leaders of the assembly and the state senate up there in California, are saying, well, we're hearing you Californians, if it's so expensive in gas and we're gonna make things more affordable. I want to see their Make California Affordable Again hats coming up. And they said, well, we're going to fix it. The guys that have been in charge with an 80% majority in both houses, every state office, and have screwed this up almost beyond repair, tell us they're going to fix it. Do you believe them, Susan Shelley?
No, of course not. But it sure is interesting. I mean, they've read if there's one thing these people know how to do, they know how to read election results. They know precinct by precinct. They know what's going on here. And, for all that the polls showed it and the town hall meetings showed it and the articles in the newspaper showed it, they didn't really believe it until those election results came in. And now they believe it. So they have to figure out what to do. And unfortunately, what they've already done is the problem. And unless they undo it, it's not going to get better.
100%. What cracks me up is that, what was it, Monday, they're all with Rob Bonner and Gulag Gavin, and we're going to sue Trump and all this stuff. They think, and they owe the federal government just over the unemployment fraud deal, $30 billion that they haven't paid back of that. And they're sitting, and then they want more money for the Olympics coming in, and they're suing him. And the guy that could probably put a big hand in helping him out, I mean, they're not biting it off. They're taking the biggest chainsaw they can, trying to saw his arm off on that stuff. The lunacy of their logic, I mean, I guess could only happen in California, but what say you, Susan?
I just agree with you completely. They need the help of the federal government, but they're going around insulting Donald Trump, which is a really stupid thing to do. And they're saying, oh, we're going to block his whole agenda, which is a stupid thing to do. He's a democratically elected president of the whole United States, of which the last I checked, California is still part. Although I know there are those who would like to leave, but we're still in it. And so why these people in Sacramento think that it's a good idea to insult the incoming president? I mean, the election's over. They don't need to win votes with the group of voters who are very excited to attack Donald Trump. So now would be a good time to stop doing that and to work with the new administration to really meet the goals of the people of California, not the politicians of California, but the people of California, which is affordable living, safe streets, electricity bills you can pay, and you don't have to put on a credit card. This is not really a complicated thing. People are being squeezed out of the state by the high cost of living, which is due to the policies of the people in Sacramento.
The other one is illegal immigration. There's two things in that. And Gotham City Mayor Eric Adams is now rumored or being reported on as trying to cut a deal with Trump and border czar Tom Homan to get the 750,000 illegals dumped on his watch, bankrupting his city. And then the Biden administration, when he complained about it, says, I need some help, some money, and they're indicting him. Where else has he got to go? But the other thing that came out was El Cajon Mayor Bill Wells said, with all the stuff going on in California, the illegals have more rights and privileges here than citizens do. I mean, it's like we're in this crazy world, Susan.
This is really shocking. The people who come over the border illegally, or who come over illegally, but the Biden administration has waved them in with some perversion of their parole law, they are getting hotel accommodations, they're getting food, they're getting cash, they're getting medical care, they're getting everything. And what are the people who are citizens getting? Nothing, or a lot less. And it's just totally backwards. What are they doing? It's as if they're trying to stuff some of these census tracts with more population who will vote Democrat, and then they can try to, even if the newcomers don't vote or don't vote yet, eventually they will if they stay, and they're counted for the census even if they can't be voting, even if they aren't citizens. They're still counted for the census, which gives certain areas more representation, and that is sometimes, I think, a goal of this also. So it's manipulating the political process through this just lawless lawless open border policy. And then there's a side effect of drugs, crime, and terrorism. This is not good. We can't be doing this. So I salute Tom Homan. I salute the Trump administration for taking this very seriously and not being pressured out of it.
I mean, I would not have guessed that it got so bad in New York City that Eric Adams is over there trying to cut a deal with Tom Homan and Trump of doing that. And I kind of sense that's what Rivas and McGuire are trying to backtrack a little bit from the bravado of Gulag Gavin Newsom and our Attorney General Rob Bonta, who were like, oh, we're gonna be Custard's last stand here, and we're gonna fight to the bitter end. They're saying now, like you said, I think they're even in California, they're reading the election results and they're hearing it from the people, especially with this latest CARB deal and whatever the $60 a gallon gas raise they're proposing of that. And I wouldn't have guessed it until that, but I'm thinking there's a good chance that our state legislature might be putting the brakes on CARB. But what do you think, Susan?
Well, I don't think they can. I don't think they can put the brakes on CARB. CARB is enforcing. CARB was chartered to create these policies by the legislature to implement these greenhouse gas reductions that are irrational and arbitrary. And they stem from the law in 2006 that Governor Schwarzenegger signed, which was AB 32. So here we are trying to implement these greenhouse gas reductions. CARB has invented these crackpot plans to do it, which impose arbitrary costs on oil companies in order to make gasoline relatively more expensive to try and promote these alternate fuels with a fake market. So if they want CARB not to do that, they have to pause the enforcement of these targets. They have to either reverse these laws or pause the laws until electricity prices and gasoline prices come down to an affordable level, because the policies are what is driving these regulations, which are what is driving these costs.
Switching gears a little bit and getting into your column, but what, among other things, where the world's leaders in is the homeless population. They've all came here. They're continuing to come here because, as we said, we've opened the tuna fish can outside, and every cat within a 3-mile radius is in your front porch in 3 seconds. And with all this stuff that we've done and incentivized them to come here, we have your columnist, California's Unaccountable Homeless Industrial Complex, Susan Shelley.
Yes, I'm particularly aggravated because a measure that was on the LA County ballot to raise the sales tax to provide another $1 billion a year for the homeless industrial complex passed. And right after the election, on November 19th, 2 weeks later, comes an audit from the county auditor controller saying, by the way, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, which spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year and supposedly oversees these contracts, they're not doing a very good job of overseeing these contracts. They don't even know how many contracts there are. They have no plan to manage the contracts. They've been advancing cash to these different so-called sub-recipients, these different non-governmental organizations that supposedly provide services. And they've been advancing tens of millions of dollars, and it's gone. They don't know where it is. They haven't recovered any of it. So what is going on here? We pay more than $300,000 a year in pay and benefits to the top executives of the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and these are the results. And all of this comes out after the election, after the voters are asked to approve another $1 billion for these same people to manage. It's pretty aggravating. It's just like the situation at the state level, where we had this Proposition 1 on the March ballot, another $6.3 billion essentially for homelessness services. And after the election, a month after the election, here comes the state auditor's report saying they've spent $24 billion. They don't know where it went. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
nice
I mean, yeah. How do we get to this point? I mean, they're still emboldened, but I think two of the things, that is one of them. That bond barely passed, and they crooked that in Alameda County. I can guarantee you, because they were going to lose that, and that would have really put a dent in their deal. But when they got to the point of doing that, and then after the fact, this is what they're doing. this is what I think they're afraid is unraveling is they've been running a con on us, like the COVID report we went through that came out the House, earlier this week, that they've been running a con telling us, oh, we'll fix it. We're doing like they're trying to do now. Oh, we'll fix this. Well, how? You're the ones that screwed it up. You have no new plan to fix it. Even if we took you as your word or that you had the expertise to do it, what is the plan you're putting in front of us that has a reasonable expectation of success? They can't do it. They can't, like you said, the money we know where it's going. It's going in some billionaires' pockets. It's sitting in brown paper sacks in front of the politicians and stuff like that is where the money's going when I mean, I don't know that it's very difficult to prove this kind of stuff, but where there's smoke, there's fire, Susan.
Well, yes. And before this particular election, people were sometimes asking me, well, if it's not going to be Measure A with the sales tax increase, what do you recommend? They always ask that. So I said, well, I recommend that the county take over these services because we're already paying county bureaucrats for housing and mental health services and all of these different things that are related to the homelessness services, and they should be operating in an accountable way inside the government. So the tax passes, and then right after that, here comes this auditor report, and then here come two of the Board of Supervisors members saying, yes, we should have the county develop a big new agency to handle homelessness services. But guess what? They're not firing all the expensive bureaucrats at the Los Angeles Homeless Services Agency. So it's going to be two bureaucracies for the price of probably four bureaucracies by the time they get finished charging us for it. So I'm not a fan of this. I do agree that the county should take this over and run it the way every other government agency is run. Bad as that is, it's better than what we're doing with homelessness now. But to have both of them at the same time, we're not going to save any money by closing down LASA. We're just going to add on top of it another bureaucracy. What a plan. This is great.
I mean, it's so frustrating that why don't we get to where the easiest way to make housing more affordable to everybody is get rid of all the stupid rules and regulations and all the constraints and everything that's been able to do all this stuff and make things all across the board. Like they're saying they want to put more water and power in with this. Well, if you're going to electrify anything, you should be building nuclear power plants from San Diego to Eureka. You should you want to improve things. You want to make it more affordable. Knock off, drill, baby, drill. We should be pumping, and we could pump 100% of the oil that we use every day in California, and we're only doing 25%. And Newsom and the crew, them guys said we're going to go to zero. You talk about unaffordability. We're going to be unsustainable if we keep on this path, Susan.
Absolutely. Now, we just had a situation where the governor pushed the legislature to crack down on what he said were abusive practices by refineries not maintaining enough inventory and not doing their maintenance at the time that he thinks they should do their maintenance, like he has any idea, like anyone in Sacramento knows anything about running a refinery or an oil company. So what happens right after that? Phillips announces they're closing a refinery in Los Angeles. Well, now the Board of Supervisors is starting a big program to help the unemployed workers at the Phillips refinery. And this is the government plan. First, you destroy the business, and then you jump in with welfare programs to help the people who are out of work because you destroyed the business. This is California's model of how things should run. Oh, yes, we're against this industry. We're going to penalize it into the ground. But then, because there are people who work there, we'll be charitable to them and help them out since they're losing their jobs at Christmas. Oh my, this is so irritating. Let these businesses operate and stop hurting people's careers and families, and maybe California would be livable again.
At our peak, we had over 50 gasoline and diesel refineries. We are down to 14 going on 10. When you had 50 refineries, if one went down, you only lost 2% of your capacity, to do this. At down to 10, you lose 1 year at 10% of the capacity. And you know, if 2% of your if one refinery or two goes down, if two go down now, you're in deep trouble. Even now at 14, because it affects the supply. And what they do? Oh well, we'll put more tanks in the ground to store more fuel. This and that. Talk about an environmental disaster. What if the tanks leak and all this stuff? I mean, their logic is so ridiculous. I mean, you know, a third grader would laugh. AI would blow up. You'd blow every circuit in the computer board if you ran this by AI, Susan.
It's true. This is so frustrating. It's so profoundly idiotic that you look at it and you say, well, this can't be right. I must be misunderstanding what they're doing here. But it's true. It's profoundly idiotic. It is blithering idiocy. They are pretending that the state of California can run on sunshine and breezes, and it can't. And every night when the sun goes down, we run on natural gas and nuclear power, and they don't want to tell you that. We run on imported electricity. How do they make it in other states? When we import it, we don't want to know. We don't want to say what they're doing in other states to generate electricity that we're paying for. This is a barbaric policy that is bankrupting the people of California. Those electricity bills that you are paying that are higher every year are higher because of stupid policies like this. And tax money is going to keep the nuclear power plant running after they said they wanted to close it. And PG&E owns it. And are they supposed to invest in it when it's going to be closed by order of the governor? Well, then they say, well, you have to keep it open longer. And they say, well, pay up. We're not going to. And so $1.4 billion of your money in a, quote, forgivable loan went to PG&E to keep the one nuclear plant in the state running so the lights wouldn't go off. That's how this state is being run. You're paying for it in taxes. You're paying for it on your electricity bill. And these people in Sacramento are morons. And they are intentionally driving this state into the ground so they can have their picture taken at a climate conference in Paris. This has to stop.
And if they would have done the nuclear power plants as we started in the 60s with Diablo and San Onofre and then stopped, of that, electricity would be so cheap, you wouldn't even turn it off in the middle of December or January when it's 32 degrees because it would cost you more to turn it off than turn it back on to, when you hit the compressor, which, gives the surge on it. I mean, this is how dumb we are of that. And two, the cleanest, cheapest burning, no greenhouse gas power, and we didn't do it, but they're all going to save the planet with solar powers that are costing us on the hot days. We got to pay Arizona, Utah to take the power, or else we're going to burn up the grid. The dingy stuff we're doing, it's beyond any sort of logic, Susan.
And it's hurting the people who have fallen for the pitch to put solar panels on their homes because they've changed all the reimbursements. They're changing all the rules for how much you have to pay to be connected to the grid and how much they're going to pay you for the electricity you sell back. And they've changed the numbers so that people are really getting hurt.
I told everybody that was doing it, and I said, yeah, you're going to do good in the beginning. I said, there's two things. That solar panel is it's like your car, your refrigerator, any other thing, it's going to wear out. And as it goes longer, it's not going to produce as much power. So you're doing good at the first. And I said, second thing, the government that gives you something is a government that's going to take it away. And
yes.
They're suffering both effects simultaneously as their solar panels are putting out less and less power. Then the government, like you said, is taking away the subsidies. And now they're going, holy crap, because even us that have been paying the bill and going up, we were able to adjust to it slowly. They're getting like the sticker shock of their lives.
Yes. Yeah, this is really rough. And people are just paying way too much for the basic necessities of life in California. It's not like this in other states. And that tells you that it's all policy driven. This is not some macroeconomic recession that's happening to the whole country. It's California policies and their consequences. And people should realize, it would be really helpful if they did, that the policies that are hurting them are caused by the people they're voting for. And when people catch up to that, then I think it's going to get better.
We got about a minute left. Tell them why they should join HJTA Go.
The Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, the best organization in California fighting for you, the taxpayer, the person who pays the bills for all these terrible people who are doing these terrible things to us. You should be paying them less. And if you join the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, you strengthen your voice in California. hjta.org. It's only $15 a year. You get Taxing Times, our newspaper, which features stories for the taxpayer, not against them, like some newspapers, and you'll really like it. hjta.org. Be a member of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association.
Thanks for being on, Susan. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you, Roy.
You got it. Susan Shelley there, Vice President of Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association and columnist extraordinaire for the Southern California News Group. Man, oh man, what a deal. I think it'll get sorted out. I think, I'm not guaranteeing it by any means, but seeing where Eric Adams, mayor of Gotham City's moving into Trump world, I think Rivas and McGuire were just trying to send out that signal without sending out 4 alarm bells on it. And I think they even realize, man, we're in a heap of trouble and we better figure this out. I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, and the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around. That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Subaru or Toyota, go to one of Cliff Cummings' great dealerships at the San Bernardino Auto Mall at the 10 and 215 freeways. Don't forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. I think there's, and again, like I said, with the little bit of Eric Adams coming on board, Rivas and McGuire slightly dipping the toe into the Trump world or saying, maybe we're going to be a little bit sorry because they're reading the wrath of the people and they're saying, ooh, maybe they're even thinking maybe we overplayed our hand just a tad. The whole Comrade Kamala, Tampon Timmy thing didn't work out so well. We're hearing it from the natives. We're seeing the shift, and we better clean up our act. That a new day and hope springs eternal, I guess. That's what we have to look forward to. Hopefully it will continue. Hopefully with Trump and that and crew putting the lead on this stuff, we'll get to the point of where everybody can get to that situation where, man, you wake up every day thinking, man, what a sunny day. I'm ready to enjoy life. That would be a refreshing change. That'll do it for today. We usually say at this time, mandatory, you're back here in 23 hours. Why? You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya!
All right. Have a great night.
Got it.